Good evening, everyone. Welcome to On the Couch. The Bombers' fall from grace claims its first scalp with President Paul Brasher stepping down to be replaced by media guru David Barham. How many more, if any, will follow, and what does it mean for the coach Ben Rutten? The Swans put a stop to the Pies' winning streak. The Demons make it an agonisingly long week for the Blues, and we all get set for a thrilling final round right here on the couch. John Brown, Nick Riewoldt, finals 2 weeks ago away. We've got a big final round coming up, but tonight it's a team that won't be competing in September that's dominating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a big day, hasn't it? It went from Carlton on Saturday night. They've been the talk of the town for about a day. Gaz going, how could they lose the unlosable game that last 10
and
minutes?
we'll talk and have a good look about that.
We'll get to that, no doubt about that. But, geez, our focus has quickly shifted to Essendon. I did that game last night. They were embarrassing. And unfortunately, that club has wallowed all over the shop for the last 20 years, to be honest.
A lot happening today that's actually a little bit hard to make sense of.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to get into that. But again, forecasting to this week, how good that we're going to have the weekend of footy where there are still so many combinations of finals for the following week that can actually happen. It's
Starts Friday
night,
will be a belter, and then Sunday at 3:20 at the MCG. Look out. Lots to get stuck into, but for Essendon supporters, it hasn't been a great season, and it's been a familiar tale of woe right from the opening game of the season.
Siren sounds. The Cats destroy Essendon round one at the MCG by 66 points.
Yeah, it wasn't an indication of what we've been doing throughout pre-season, how we've been training. It was just a long way off anywhere near our best footy, and it was kind of across the board.
They've come on the road. They've won by 48 points. They've left Essendon in a purple daze.
It's a bit disappointing that we weren't able to step up and kind of get in the arm wrestle that was required at that time.
The Swans find a way, a win over the Bombers, and some question marks for Ben Rutten to contemplate.
When I look across our squad and our team, you know, we didn't quite show the resolve and the steeliness to maintain the level that we needed to. There was at times I thought we were too easily kind of derailed off our game, you know, and found it hard to get back. That's where, in particular, our more senior players, they're the ones that we need to pave the way and shine a light for our younger guys. They didn't do that tonight.
And that'll do it. Spike McVeigh gets the result he's after against his former club.
That lack of appetite around the ball. It wasn't through lack of what we knew we were going to get from the Giants. It was more about what our level of effort and output that we didn't bring.
An 84-point demolition job on Essendon by the Power.
The sort of game that our supporters, our members that came to the game tonight, watching on TV, it's not the sort of thing they should have to watch. You know, it was an embarrassing effort and output from our guys. Not something that we certainly want to stand for, not something our members and supporters should have to watch.
And the postscript was written today. 66-point loss in round one, an 84-point loss in the last game that was played on the weekend. John Ralph joins us on a big news day, Ralphie, and the first scalp has dropped, and that is Paul Brasher, the president.
Yeah, that's correct. So after 24 hours of high drama, the only confirmed change is that Paul Brasher is out and the former Channel 10 sports boss in David Barham is in. So Brasher was forced out at a board meeting today, and despite the speculation of the day, Rutten at the moment is still the coach. The board coup has been pitched as all about the club's review process. So my understanding is that when Brasher announced the review in March, a lot of those board members had no idea it was coming. They were stunned that it came out of his mouth, and from then on, they wanted an external review. Only an internal review was pitched by Sean Wellman with the help of Kevin Sheedy and Simon Madden. And so from then on, it festered, it came to a head. Guys, does it surprise you that we are 2 weeks short of 18 years since Essendon won an AFL final?
Oh, surprise! I mean, you need a lot to go right and a lot to go wrong for that for you to bounce quickly and be a premiership team again, and at the same time to go as long as they have. I'm interested, Ralphie. So the falling out today, and Brasher in particular, is that was the result yesterday almost irrelevant because it was the findings of the internal review that people were just up in arms about, or is it the review was not satisfactory and the result just compounded the issue?
I think the last 2 weeks, Essendon tell me, absolutely didn't help. But I think what started as a board review has turned into something much more significant. So the chase for Alastair Clarkson is absolutely on. The issue with Paul Brasher, he was never going to sack Ben Rutten. He was a strong confidant of him. And so board members, including Sheedy, I don't think are great fans of Ben Rutten. So unless Brasher was gone, the club would not be in the race for Alastair Clarkson, even though it's my understanding senior figures at the club knew that Clarkson was interested in coaching Essendon. And I think the strong view today is that that some board members have already contacted his management. So Rutten's job now clearly untenable, whether, of course, he is sacked in coming days or he's sacked after, of course, the game against Richmond.
Xavier Campbell was asked today about the future of the coach.
As you guys are aware, there's ongoing discussions at board level. They'll continue this week. There'll be an announcement, a statement from the club later today regarding the leadership of the board. And also some further analysis the board want to do around our football program to drive improvement. And that's something, obviously, we presented to the board a couple of weeks ago. There's an ambition to drive improvement and make our football program the best program can be, and that's where we sit at the moment.
Have you spoken to Alastair Clarkson?
I have not spoken to Alastair Clarkson. That's all I'm going to say, guys. We'll release a statement shortly, and
can you guarantee
hopefully that
can you guarantee
settles you guys. Thank you very much. Ben is our coach.
So we know why we're here, and that's because on-field Essendon have been this year, and for a period, a club devoid of system, of leadership on-field. We see it every week, and of standards and accountability to that. I mean, how many times have we heard the club this year saying, we don't stand for that, yet it keeps happening. So given all of that and the movement today, Gaz, what do you expect to be happening at Essendon right now?
Well, I would imagine that external review might start and stop with one man, and that is Alastair Clarkson. And if it's not happening right now, then it will be the biggest search party for Alastair Clarkson and the most impassioned plea to get that man to come and coach the Essendon Football Club next year and bring with him his own team. If that's not happening, and Xavier Campbell says that he hadn't spoke to him whatever time that is, then I don't know for certain, but I would be staggered if that is not a full-on offensive that's going to take place over the next couple of days. And they will go all chips in. And this is a big, massive football club who have been sitting in the dark for too long, and they see now Alastair Clarkson. I think it's been a late realisation that he has to be the man. And people will say about Alastair Clarkson, we're worried about him, his baggage, and he's got too much control. This is a club that needs someone to take control of their football club. And he is the perfect man with his perfect team in place. And I would think over the next 2 or 3 days, and that full-on offensive will be taking place.
I would be concerned if I was senior hierarchy at Essendon. If you're in that situation, I liken it to maybe Lee Matthews taking over from the Brisbane Lions in the late 90s when everyone went, including the president.
Yeah.
So would Alastair Clarkson want to... It would seem to me from the outside, if he was to come in, he would want a clean slate of the senior heads of the football department and the football club.
Yeah, I would only
expect that.
I'd only look at the footy department, and I would think if you're sitting in that football department right now and he was to come, you'd be pretty nervous because he will bring people with him that will fill specific roles. Some of those people that come might not want to work with some of the incumbents that are already there right now, and this will be, as I said, North Melbourne right now, the footy club who will be sitting back thinking they had their man in the past 24, 48 hours, who'd be most nervous.
So Brasher goes because he's hitched his wagon to Rutten. So this movement today is the only way from here that it's justified, if they land Alastair Clarkson.
Yeah, I think this is, again, just read, this is a chips in. This is a chips in play from the Essendon Footy Club right now. And for whatever reason, I think they thought that they might be able to take their time in this external review. And no, there's an urgency. We know the urgency.
So what's your gut feel? Your gut feel, and whether it's informed mail or not, would he choose Essendon over North Melbourne?
I don't know, and hand on heart, I don't know, but I would think that the match, and this, I don't want to, North Melbourne have been down, and I reckon the sense of optimism around North Melbourne for a week now has been great, and we've all sort of enjoyed it. But the fit of Clarkson and Essendon might be just irresistible. And
big club.
Big club with big resources and have been down for so long, and the history between Clarkson and Essendon, I think they're going all chips in and they're going to go hard.
OK, so let's assume that's happening right now, and that the calls to Clarkson are being made despite what Xavier Campbell said, so we all think that's happening. If Clarkson knocks them back and chooses North Melbourne, is it untenable for Ben Rutten to have been through this?
Yes.
So regardless of what happens from here, Essendon will have a new coach next year.
When I say definitively,
only Ben Rutten can answer that question.
Reading that from the outside, if that is your play, to go to Clarkson and just lay yourself at his feet...
But what else could it be?
Well, what else can Ben Rutten do? Sit there and go, I'd be happy to come back. If you don't think you can get your man, I'll come back. I would think it's almost untenable.
Yeah, there are board members there who have posed the question to themselves, even halfway through the year. If Ben Rutten was not contracted, would he be the coach next year? And I think the answer, kicks and screams us all in the face. I think there's no way that he's coaching next year.
So why have they waited so long? Because, it seems as if, that Alastair Clarkson may be too far down the track with North Melbourne.
Well, they beat Brisbane.
Why is this taking so long?
They beat Brisbane. They beat Sydney. They got within 4 points of Collingwood. But I think some of those board members feel for every solid couple of performances, 30 tackles against Essendon, against Sydney, you lose to West Coast.
But you raised this, Gary. Those wins, they were empty.
That's right. So your question is the question. Yeah, and I think there'd be members of that board who are sitting back going, we've let this get away from us. We had an opportunity, but we were seduced by performances that at the end of the day weren't defining. They were there when the result of the season had been already sorted out. And now they're scrambling. They're going to scramble. They'll scramble big and hard.
Something would want to happen quick, either way. Because the AFL system and program waits for no one. So recruiting, drafting, all of the things that happen within an off-season, you need to be able to get that stuff in line with the coach and play.
For Essendon, they're going to wear some heat, right? Which they brought upon themselves. For the next 2 or 3 days while this process plays out and they wait for an answer, so what? Hold your nerve. If this is where you decide that this is where you want to go, then you've got to cop the criticism and you've got to wear it.
They're too far in now,
But in a week's time, if they land him and those that come with him, I don't reckon there are going to be too many Essendon fans who are going to hold the grudge.
It doesn't always work out. I was at Brisbane in 2013 when they jumped early. They got rid of Michael Voss with 3 rounds to go to get into the Paul Roos sweepstakes. They all of a sudden freed up their coaching position, and then Paul Roos knocked them back.
Stakes high.
So it's high stakes. All chips are in the middle of the table, though.
So much speculation today about who else might fall. And Xavier Campbell and Josh Marnie were 2 people who were speculated about by senior journalists in the media. Now, I've spoken to Essendon tonight, and the very strong feel from the board tonight is that Xavier Campbell has had his 2-year contract extension endorsed in terms of he's safe. Clearly he's been an outstanding commercial CEO. We all believe that he's tied to the succession plan, and so he's going to get some paint stripped off in regards to that. But I feel like right now, as we speak, that Xavier Campbell is very safe at Essendon.
So, and just the Kangaroos quickly before we move on to other issues. Yeah. They just got it. They've done their best.
Yep.
They've gone and they've laid themselves again at the feet of the man, and now they've got to wait.
As with Josh Kelly and so many of the star players out there that they thought might potentially be got. So they've given a soft deadline of Wednesday, according to the Herald Sun, in terms of making a decision. They need some closure. If it isn't for them, if it isn't Clarkson, they'll move on to the likes of Ken Hinkley, Leon Cameron. They just don't believe they can afford another first-timer.
Just one last one goes for you. Who wins out, Xavier Campbell or Alastair Clarkson, if one of the directives from Clarkson is I want a clean slate?
I think there can be a win-win there, Browning. I think that's still a possibility.
What's a win-win?
I think they both could stay. So I don't think it's one or the other. I don't know. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. GWS Giants?
Adam Urzay's just blown GWS away with his presentations, and so Melbourne's made very clear that if he does win the job, or he's told that he will win the job, that they would expect him to remain with the Demons throughout their finals campaign. Hopefully that finishes on September 24. I don't think GWS ever really fell in love with Clarkson. I don't think they ever felt he wanted to move north. So just consider that, though. If Adam Urzay wins the job over a 4-time premiership coach through dint of his presentations, it's a pretty stunning achievement.
What would happen, do you have any indication if in fact Adams, I hope he does it, from a Melbourne going into a finals campaign?
Yeah, he would stay. Yeah, they're very happy with that, and I think what would likely happen is they'd time the announcement of Urzay as their coach, so it would be after the grand final.
Well, it's the same as Luke Jackson. So I think everyone's resigned to the fact that Luke Jackson's going. If it's good enough for a player to stay and contribute to a premiership, have the maturity that a coach can do it as well. It's great.
Let's tick off a few of these. Jed Anderson concussion situations.
Just spoke to the AFL and the Roos. It has been ticked off. Of course, there were errors made there with the Jed Anderson situation. So the club doctor has just talked to Michael McDissy, who's the AFL's head medical boss. So there was chaos on the bench. Jaden Stevenson with a back injury. Jack Zeeble had been subbed out. So the AFL view is that Spotter and the Arc did the right thing. And I think what happened is that the message came through on that Hawkeye tablet and the doctor just didn't see it. As you can see, he stumbles there. So he clearly was concussed. That's 11 minutes later that he was subbed out of the game. So mistakes made, but fair enough. There will be no sanction.
Mistakes made, but not malicious from the Kangaroos in trying to actually pull a Swifty or anything like that. And the safety net's there for that reason.
Zane Cordy, where's this set?
So it's a really clumsy solution to refer Zane Cordy to the tribunal for his late hit on Tanner Bruin. But the AFL's view is that it just couldn't allow a player trying to get to his opponent to be concussed and there'd be absolutely no repercussions. It would be case number one in the class action against the AFL. I think the very strong assumption here is that Brad Scott and Andrew Dillon, who review these cases, they made the decision. So I think they believe that they have to test Cordy's actions, whether they are reasonable in the circumstance. And the only positive of referring it ungraded is that the Dogs don't have to stump up 10K with their football department cap.
There's a shepherd, yeah?
For the Shepherd, yeah.
So you're saying the AFL are saying they won't let a Shepherd go?
They believe that there can't be a situation where a player shepherds or goes to get to the ball and then he is concussed, even though it's a legal bump.
It wouldn't be case number 1 against the class action. It'd be case number 2 because Paddy Cripps would be case number 1. Yeah. You only have to look a week ago.
Well, what about the head? So the head hitting the ground, does that come into play?
Well, they believe that it was more likely to be a ricochet, a whiplashing motion. And so, again, that's what they believe. Let's test that. You know, you guys have all got valid questions.
So there wasn't head-high contact in the bump?
No.
So he may get suspended for not hitting the head and Paddy Cripps gets off for hitting the head. Very simplistically.
How do we not have a system where, or a confidence in the system where the MRO can actually grade?
Well, I think that they said it was so complex that the matrix just didn't help, and so that's the best way to do it. I'm not defending it, I'm just saying that's what the AFL would say.
Ralphie, you've been very good on a very big news day. Lastly, Tassie, the AFL Commission, when's that all come to a head?
Yeah, so the AFL Commission spoke today about it. There was a review there. There was 8 hours worth of discussions there. So that will now go to the presidents in the last week of August or the first week of September. I think there's a lot of clubs now that are really backing it in. I spoke to Adelaide's John Olsen today, and he said to me, we are predisposed to supporting Tasmania. It's a traditional football state, and if we are a national competition, the state in its own right ought to have a team. Gillon McLaughlin's backing it in. He believes the business case stacks up. There are those 11 work streams. Every one but the stadium rights deal has been ticked off. It can be worked through. So North Melbourne, Richmond, the Dogs, other teams in strong support. And I even think the clubs like Gold Coast, who have very vocal presidents.
Tony Cochrane.
I think that they are saying, even though Tony might... No, Tony hasn't come around.
Okay.
They are saying that Tony doesn't necessarily speak for us on the Gold Coast. So I think there might be a few boards
division in the ranks
who might potentially vote a different way to their very strong
Rooster is dividing and conquering.
One battle at a time, Brownie.
Put your money on Tasmania. This will happen.
It's going to happen. Nice. All right, Ralphie, thanks so much. All the off stuff covered, all the off-field stuff covered. Let's get our teeth into what was a big weekend of footy with big ramifications. And Carlton fans, they're still sitting on the couch saying, how are we not locked away already for a final spot? They've got a big week of waiting. We'll come to a head at the MCG. We'll tell you how this happened.
Franklin's got a hold of it. Hand pass off. Here's his chance. And Heaney's not going to waste this one. Murphy going back. Heaney as well. Game 150. Clever tap. Franklin! The greatest show on earth.
Swans were able to do what 11 other teams hadn't been able to do at the SCG on the weekend. We'll tell you how they did it in a moment, but just for a second, that crowd at that SCG yesterday, the second largest in home and away in the history, how good was that? In footy up there with Buddy and Heaney and Rampy, that was like goosebump stuff.
They've got a lot of stars, Sydney, don't they? Young stars. They've always had a great way of attracting stars, and obviously the younger ones coming through as well.
Had some nice moments up at the SCG this year.
Yeah, no, and it's the city of Sydney have come, and their love for them was obvious. I just thought it was, and there were 60,000 at the MCG yesterday as well.
That was a great crowd yesterday. That was a beauty.
How good's footy going right now? So, what did they do? Yeah, we had a look at it. We went back and had a look at the Swans, and for 11 games, Collingwood found a way, but they ran into a team that put some things in place that held them in good stead. Yeah,
well, the pressure's been outstanding all year, but this is a great effort. As I say, Collingwood had won 11 in a row. So they denied Collingwood's pressure. They were able to sort of retain some possession. Got the game out. Collingwood likes to play this real chaos game. So Sydney were able to just pull it back from that chaotic style. So that was point number 2. Number 3, they restricted Collingwood's surge in ball movement. Much like we've spoken about Collingwood's comparison to Richmond when they won in 2017, they like to play fast, free-flowing football, get the ball moving forward. And then point number 4, they tagged Nick Dacos. Now, just because you're in your first year, Gary, shouldn't preclude teams from actually tagging him.
Been very kind to the young champ. He's had a great run and made the most of it. So when the game did get into like surge mentality, it's the only time when you're watching it where you're thinking that Collingwood are a chance of winning.
Yeah, and almost the safety valve for Sydney from those periods of play where they need to find a mark. They need to find a mark because that provided Sydney with the opportunity to take Collingwood's pressure away, control the ball for periods. Sydney do it really well. So a lot of teams we see possess the football, but they're non-threatening with it. Sydney, they move forward. They take the game on in that kick mark fashion.
They have good kickers.
They have good kickers and they make good decisions. So they take the corridor on, but they never really look like they're playing a risky brand of football. He's got them playing great style, Horse.
Yeah, and you guys had a look on back. I want to show you something back on July the 18th. So we all, thought Sydney were in really good shape, but you had one concern. This was back a month or so ago.
Sydney, after round 18, all their stats are going fantastic, except for the contested possession difference. Now, this is Geelong. The same stats after round 9 for Geelong this season.
Look like this.
They looked exactly the same. So Geelong, clearly since round 9, have been able to turn their contest work around.
So the question is, could Sydney follow suit? And they've gone to work on it, which has been fantastic.
What we asked at that time when it was raised is, how do they turn this part of the game around? Because at that time, it's the only part missing. Well,
was it Josh Kennedy?
Well, does Josh Kennedy go into the middle for an 8-week burst to turn the contested game around? Well, no. It's been Rowbottom, it's been Warner, and it's been Luke Parker. And they've stepped it up to the level that now this is just a strength within their game. It's not something that they're trying to mask. This is, over the last 5-week block, a real asset to them. So at the moment, you look at their profile, there isn't a weakness. So we can start talking about them like we're talking about Geelong in that they play a complete game.
And they've all lifted. 5 of the top 50 contested players in the competition in the last 6 weeks are coming from here. And it was on display against this Collingwood side at the SCG yesterday. Their pressure, their willingness to chase down, their willingness to commit, I thought was outstanding. And the Magpies, for the first time in a while, I wouldn't say they didn't handle it, but it was a challenge for them. And there's one in the moment, I'll show you, the Goulden one here. I mean, this is just... Collingwood were getting away with this at times against teams who weren't as committed in the chase.
They've been fantastic, guys. It's a real credit to the Sydney Swans and John Longmire, his coaching staff, to get the team up week after week. Part of it's strategy and method, but it's effort. That's an intangible. Just the players bringing their effort and their spirit week in, week out. They've got a great culture, Sydney. So obviously on the back of that pressure, they've matched it up with contest, and now they're a real shot to win a premiership.
Look at a player like Nick Blakey, he's great as the Lizard, your man. He's great ball in hand and he looks so exciting. But I reckon he's sort of symbolic of what Sydney are doing in that he buys in so much defensively with his effort and his chasing, his tackling, that when a player like that does it, it ripples through the group.
It's only a little blip for the Magpies, so Magpie fans can still be really confident. But we've spoken all year about getting it right time of the year, playing your best footy, from now and the weekend. So they lost the game, didn't lose any admirers, but they lost some players. So DeGoey goes out pre-game, Ginnivan goes out during the game, and then, the pressure comes on their rucking. We'll have a look at their rucking numbers in a moment. So how they come back this week against Carlton will be significant.
There was always a concern going into the season, Rui, was they're a little bit two-tiered. They had a lot of sort of older stars, experienced stars, and a lot of young players. So probably couldn't afford too many injuries. Now, they've been able to wear Grundy and DeGoey just for a short period of time, but let's hope now the injuries don't get a hold of Collingwood and just bring them back into the pack. That is the absolute concern.
I'm a massive fan, obviously, but how often do we see a team have a streak of wins snapped and then one loss turns into 2, 3? So you're right, you want to be playing really good footy now and you just hope they can turn it around quickly.
What about the rucks? So we've spoken about Brodie Grundy being out. Darcy Cameron's done a great job. Now Cameron just starting to get shown up against some of the quality ruckmen in the competition, Gaz. That is a concern. Now, Grundy is injured, so we can't do much about it. Cox's actually been pretty good when he's gone into the ruck, but some of his opponents, Gaz, they've got issues with.
The last month.
The last month, when you run through these. So this is Max Gawn had a massive game against him. And now, the other side of the coin here is that they win the game, right? So, but still, it's significant. It might be an issue as they go forward. Finlayson, number 1 rated player in that game when they played against them. So these are the little patterns that are emerging ever so slightly. Draper, the number 2 rated player. So this is the challenge now, isn't it, for Cameron and for Cox, is to say, OK, have a look at these numbers.
Who prior to that had a really good 6-week block, to the point that we were talking about is Grundy redundant and superfluous to their needs. So
I think Darcy Cameron's the most important. Arguably the most important player for Collingwood over the next few weeks, however the rest of the season, how long the season goes for them.
Hey, the Demons and the Blues on Saturday night was just one of those games where you couldn't take a breath, and the finals for the first time. And what we're about to show you is why good teams execute under pressure. We spoke to Jake Lever today on radio. He said, listen, we thought that we could have done some things better against Collingwood the week before, and then we had a chance 8 days later to put this in place. So let's have a look at the last play of this game, which is not going to be great watching for Carlton supporters. But look at Lever's communication.
That's it. So there's the leadership that kicks in. So they've clearly identified the fact that they've got an outnumber in the corridor. You can see Carlton have the extra down the line and off the back of the stoppage. That's good positioning from the Carlton players because teams want to go there. They want to get the ball forward. Melbourne, this is just heads-up play. A lot of people are asking, was it intentional from Lever? Well, yeah, look there, because he knows where the outnumber is. It's going to be a risky kick to bring the ball into the middle of the ground. You'd love that ball to stay in tight there from Carlton. A ball out in space is advantage Melbourne. And just here, this takes such a high level of leadership, of heads in the game and courage that this is the reason Melbourne won the game.
Yeah, and with various stages, people said to me today, "Oh, he just kicked it. He just kicked it in the middle." Well, no, he didn't. And that vision you're showing there is sensational. And as I said, we spoke to him this morning. So let's have a listen to Jake Lever and watch the play unfold.
When you need to come from behind, the opposition put a lot of numbers back. And then for us, we knew that Carlton were going to do that, and we just had to find our numbers and find those spare players. So wherever they were, we just had to try and get the ball in the middle of the ground, and in the end, it works.
How many times they go down the line into that pocket where they're set up, ball goes out of bounds and stays there?
You die a slow death. So they might have only rehearsed that the week before. So let's not underestimate the ability with 10, 15 seconds to be able to get that organised, to actually be able to execute. That's why leadership's so valuable.
Heads up play, still the same challenges though for Melbourne with their scoring goes. That's the challenge going into September, going into the forward line, even to the point where now Max Gawn's not starting in the centre bounce. He's, I wouldn't say sacrificed part of his game, but he certainly changed part of his game to go and start in the forward line and really be a pseudo key position forward. Numbers are down a little bit from his time in the ruck, but what you got now is you've got Ben Brown trying to play this big contested marking role that he's never, and we're assessing him hard because he's not really, Lewis Young outmarked him a number of times, so I think they know that, so they want to try and get Max down to be a contested mark target, at least bring the ball to ground. So you've got to try and make the most of what you got, Brownie. I don't think they're going to, unless Tom McDonald, can get over whatever he's got quickly. I think they're going to have to do that. Let's talk about their opponent coming up on Friday night and Brisbane, and they got the job done. They weren't super impressive, but they've unearthed a player who was, not unearthed him, but Cam Rayner just had a bit of a coming out moment. Yeah, he did. It was fantastic, Gaz. Really, to me, he strikes me as a player that looks for the big moment, no doubt about it. And he did that. He was the man that got them over the line when really St Kilda were pressing and probably should have been further in front. Now, there's been comparisons to Dustin Martin early days, a little bit Christian Petrarca lately. So if he seems to possess the same match-winning ability as a Petrarca.
He's got the same physical attributes, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
The power and the build.
No doubt about it. You look at that, there is a difference. So we're not saying he's at Petrarca's level. Cam Rayner's played 84 games. This is Petrarca's numbers after he'd played 84 games. Played a lot more than that now. So clearly disposal rate is higher. Goals, very similar. Score involvement's a bit similar, but the midfield time is similar. So Rayner obviously wants to get more disposed in the game, but he has that match-winning ability and the ability to break a game open. I think he looks for those moments.
Just needs to be Cam Rayner. That's just, I think, and the rest of it can sort itself out. The other big talking point out of it, of course, is the Max King situation. And, when Max plays well and he does what we know he's capable of, he is lauded, rightfully so. But when Max kicks badly, the criticism comes, and it's justifiable criticism. He had his opportunity to if not win the game, certainly put them in a position to, and he wasn't able to in the end. And then the narrative after it is the coaching he gets down there, the coaching offer that he's had from his former mentor in Matthew Lloyd, that St Kilda denied him. St Kilda now, Brett Ratton post-game said, hey, we don't need to. Subsequently, they've now said we'd be open to it. It's all a little bit messy.
Yeah, it has been a bit of a mess, that entire conversation. I think the bottom line is he's got an issue with his goal kicking. I don't think it's a major issue. He's been a really good kick at times. He finished the year really strongly last year. I think 26 goals, 8 to finish the season. So we've all been there. When it gets in your head, it can be a really difficult thing to overcome. I'd be more focusing on the other parts of his game to make him a more rounded key forward. The thing that stood out to me that I would love to have seen is when it was clear to everyone in the stadium that he was mentally struggling with the goal kicking aspect of the game. Get over to him. Someone shows him leadership. He was operating in a silo, completely isolated, and not one teammate got to him that I could see to say, hey, mate, just put a smile on your face, go back, you're a bloody good kick, go back and hammer it through. That was a missing link for me.
The only thing I'd say going forward, and this is to all young forwards, is when you become a good, consistent goal kicker, is having an awareness of what you do. What your tendencies under pressure, Gaz. So we all have tendencies under pressure, whether it be lean back, whether we slow down. He looks like a player that loses momentum, so he just needs to come up with some cues in pressure situations. Go, right now, what's my cue? I need to run in faster or lean forward, and he'll learn about these things. It's a development process for young key forwards and young goal kickers.
Philosophically, does he need to take control of his own performance in terms of saying to St Kilda, listen, I know we've got coaches which are great, but enable me to go and access who I need to make me as good as I can.
Well, I think he's at the stage of his career now where he can. You know, first, second year, it's probably hard to go to the club and say, hey, get out of my way, I'm going to go and do it this way. But you want your athletes and your footballers to be self-directed, self-motivated and taking control of their own destiny.
That's the point. So St Kilda said, yeah, we're open to it. Well, OK, now it's up to Max. Yep. Don't worry about St Kilda and don't worry about whoever else is there. Let him drive it. And if he wants to go and talk to Matty Lloyd or you or
Jimmy Steins used to do this.
Jimmy did whatever he wanted and never missed a game for 244 weeks, although the doctor and the physio hated every second of the witch doctors that he had and everyone else.
All I'll say is you've got to be, with goal kicking though, be careful you listen to too many people. Don't take too much advice. You only hear it from the trainer and then the boot starter and then your mum.
You're not listen to your coffee, are you?
No, absolutely not. I'd be saying keep it very simple.
Righto, I like it.
Too many people.
Let's have a look at the ladder. I don't think they're going to make it, but it does set up just a tantalising round 22, so they need everything to go right. So for the Saints fans, that's they play Sydney, which is going to be a challenge in and of itself.
They're cooked, Gaz.
OK, fair enough. We'll move on. So Melbourne and Brisbane, 3v4, Collingwood v Carlton, 5v8. Western Bulldogs have got to win. All these things.
So I'd love to see the AFL. So we know Carlton-Collingwood's 3:20 on Sunday. Yep. Bulldogs Hawthorn is in Launceston 1 o'clock. I'd love to see them move the start time and run it simultaneously with the Carlton.
You're on the same line of thinking as Gerard Waitley, who's been saying play it more on Saturday at the same time.
Well, because that way, if the Western Bulldogs lose, Carlton are in. So it removes one of the great aspects of the game. We've got top 4, top 8 ramifications for both teams. Well, who cares if the game's at 3 o'clock at the same time in Tassie?
I want to watch them all. Bulldogs will beat Hawthorn. It's going to absolutely be. It's going to be a live game. Carlton has to win, no doubt about it.
Well, you won't be replacing Gill.
And the other big one is the implications for Melbourne and Brisbane, especially Melbourne, guys. Yeah, really. If they win, they could finish second. You lose, you could finish 6th.
And play Richmond.
Richmond. So they're huge. That Friday night game is going to be an absolute cracker when it comes to
what are you worried about most? Melbourne have had the wood over Brisbane in this.
They had the wood over Brisbane. You know, if you actually just look at this vision, this sums up the difference between Brisbane and Melbourne. So they get them on the spread. They've been able to beat them in post-clearance, contested possession. So really, that's another word for spread. And the reason, I think Melbourne people believe they can run better than Brisbane. Yeah, and I think that's probably some other teams think that in the competition as well when they come up against Brisbane. We've seen it. So the challenge is for Brisbane now, Rui, can they match the running ability of Melbourne going forward and not get done on the spread like they have the previous few times against
I don't know. It's a hard thing to just flick the switch and say we're going to run better today. I think it's about the way the game is played. So when the game turns into a chaos game, gets on the outside, well, then we know that's when Melbourne really have dominated teams with their running power.
And the numbers don't lie. The last 2 times they've played, Rui, these 2 opponents, Melbourne clearly got them on the spread. So that's the challenge for the Lions.
It is indeed, and it's going to be on Friday night, and you'll see it here on Fox Footy. It's going to be a belter as we go to the break. AFL 360 up next. They'll be all over this developing Essendon story. But I tell you, if you're a Geelong supporter, not much has gone wrong for you in recent times. There's some breaking news over one of your out-and-out superstars. Might not be there this week. That's next.
Car insurance.
And he's got another mark for his 50th goal of the season. And what a way to do it. T-Lynch in the pocket. This is for 7. What an attribute he is still for this Richmond team. The number 8 at the MCG. The linchpin, the kingpin.
Kingpin right, they looked very ominous at the MCG yesterday against still beat the Hawks, whose final series have been over for a long, long time, or finals hopes. Kicked 8 goals, had them by three-quarter time.
Has he been one of the great all-time pickups?
Yeah, he's been fantastic, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we underrate his performance, his impact on that footy club.
His running mate's been just as good. His old teammate from Gold Coast.
Awesome. And it was a Hawthorn defence that didn't have James Sicily, who played a different role. We'll talk about that in a moment, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. I think they've got to find out about Jekka and Blank and the others. But
how dangerous can the Richmond forward line be?
Well, let's have a look at it. Put it
September.
up and tell me that if you play this team in September and they're now playing finals footy, tell me that this isn't putting a few pride into you. Cumberland has developed and got such great goal sense and kicks it beautifully. We've just spoken about Tom Lynch, who's in as good a form as he's been. Maurice Rioli Jr. looks as comfortable at AFL level now as he has forever. And he's got Cyril chasing and tackling and smothering.
And Hughes as well. Hughes is a beautiful.
Bolton...
He's probably the best player in the comp.
Yeah, if he's not, he has been. The bloke in the middle, Jack's... He didn't have a great day, but I love the way Dimmer said Jack got out of the road for Tom Lynch because he realised he was on fire, so that's a nice sell. And then the wild card is that other bloke down there in the bottom left who wears number 4. He comes back in, that 6 there is giving any team...
Pretty handy decoy, Dustin Martin.
It's giving opposition teams nightmares because of the firepower, but also defensively. We saw Maurice Rioli on the weekend, and you alluded to it, Gaz, his ability to get after the opposition. He has a hunger for it now. So here's one effort, but he bounces to his feet that quickly. He goes past scrimshaws like he's standing still, and he covers the ground so quickly that players that think they're out, they're all of a sudden under pressure, turn it over, and guess what? You chase defensively, you end up putting yourself in a position to be able to get Hughes coming back the other way. So it was a maximum impact game from him yesterday. Low possession count, but everything he touched was a score.
And these efforts were not spasmodic. They were throughout the day, which tells you that he's picked up a hard AFL-style fitness, that allows you to do repeat efforts.
Explosive,
I reckon when you first get there, particularly for Morris who's come from up north, it would have been a shock to the system. But what we saw as that game wore on, he continued, and it's the Richmond fans, I tell you.
They've had a good knack of getting those type of players, haven't they? 2017, it was built on the back of that forward pressure.
You couldn't not take Maurice Rioli. When he was available, Richmond would have burnt their grandstand to the ground. And we mentioned James Sicily, so just explain what they did with James Sicily yesterday, Rui.
Yeah, so they had the key defenders that they wanted to expose. So there wasn't really a match-up for Sicily. So they pushed him up into the middle of the ground. And he started as a back and then almost did the reverse Dusty, moved up into the middle, became an extra in and around stoppages, got a stack of the footy, used it pretty well, found plenty of the ball, and you got to expose some of your young key defenders to 2 of the best key forwards in the competition. So I liked it from Sam Mitchell because the season's over. You might as well find out about some of these guys.
I agree, absolutely.
Righto, for Geelong fans, first and foremost, we congratulate you and your footy club for once again finishing minor premiers, which is just a staggering performance given where they've been over a long period of time. But news tonight, not great. From a Jeremy Cameron point of view, he suffered a fresh hamstring injury on the weekend. He spent the last 16 minutes on the bench. We're told tonight that it is a right hamstring injury, the same hamstring that he suffered an injury to 3 times last year. Now, the Cats are saying it's a low-grade hamstring at the moment.
Wow.
But it's not what you want to hear for, again, you talk about the Shea Boltons of the world in terms of the most dominant players. Not what you want to hear. So, they will back him in. They've got the weekend off with a bye, but
given the history,
not the time.
Given the history, if it's a legitimate strain, then I'd be staggered if he got up for
3 weeks.
Final.
3 weeks minimum.
Yeah, so I reckon he missed first.
And they'd be conservative given where they're at as a footy side.
And hope that you win, you get straight through to the prelim. He ends up having 5 weeks.
Low grade. Just flag this morning. What do you get for finishing on top? Anything?
No, nothing.
Trophy, don't you? The Callan Trophy?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it's called?
What is it? The Callan Trophy? No, I wouldn't. I'd be disrespectful. But I don't know whether you should.
What should you get?
I just suggest to give him $1 million.
Just a spare million lying around, Gary?
Of course they have.
I think you get money for playing finals, depending on the different tiers you get to for finals. So there is a monetary reward for the clubs.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much the players get.
Tell me this from a Geelong point of view, if you're a fan. Have you got any nervousness at all that you've only played one three top 8 sides in the past, whatever that is, 9 games.
Yeah.
You got any nervousness at all?
The only thing is, when they have come up against the top sides, Gaz,
they smacked them.
They've beaten them. They're 5-2 against top 8 teams, so they've got a very, very good record against those teams. So it's probably not the ideal prep. You'd like some more difficult games. Melbourne's obviously had a really tough run.
Would you rather that? Would you rather the Melbourne lead in?
I think that's the interesting question. I mean, Geelong have done nothing wrong, so
it's allowed them to manage their group, and they do have an older group.
They're
so
clearly not worried about it because they've gone and proactively managed players like Duncan and Smith and these guys on the weekend. So, look, I think they've done what they need to do.
Coleman medal race is interesting, but even more interesting now with Cameron out. So. Jeremy Cameron kicked 9 goals to win his first Coleman medal in the last game of 2019. It was going to set itself up beautifully. Curnow against Carlton, Jeremy against the West Coast Eagles, but I think Charlie Curnow now looks to be a pretty good bet to take out the Coleman medal, which is an outstanding performance in his own right.
Put Tommy Hawkins in the square. No Jeremy Cameron. Just funnel it all through him and try and get him to kick 10.
Well, they do play the West Coast Eagles, so...
Tom
Brass probably wins the best and fairest for the West Coast Eagles. He's been one of the bright spots of the year.
Love this. Joel Selwood, I got told this today. I just wanted to share it with everyone. He's played 1 dead rubber in his career. So
it's amazing.
What's the total he's played?
353 or something.
So there's only 1 game in that whole career where he's gone into it knowing that he will not be a part of a finals campaign. Once.
Be a good exercise. How many do you reckon you played in?
Probably half, halfway through the year, you're out of contention, whatever it is.
Well, it's not a nice feeling, is it?
It's
horrible.
And that 1 dead rubber, he had about 37 touches and absolutely dominated.
And dead rubbers are interesting. So Port Adelaide, we talked about Essendon tonight, and it'll be continued the conversation throughout the night with 360 coming up. Port Adelaide weren't playing for anything other than pride on the weekend.
Absolutely. Okay, let's have a look at the attitude. Yesterday was a great example of the attitude of 2 teams that are not going to play in finals. Port Adelaide coming to play and preparing for 2023, trying to get something out of it. Essendon were horrible, waiting to the off-season, come back after that. Have a listen to what Jeremy Finlayson said post-game. This gives you an insight into their attitude.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think you see some teams that come back, like Richmond, they might have had a poor year and then they come and win all them premierships. That's what we've got our eyes on, finishing off the year strong, heading into pre-season, and, I'm pretty sure the boys will be back next year.
The footy's amazing, isn't it? So last week it was Ken Hinkley on Monday that was under the pump after the David Koch comments.
Only from one man.
Yeah, well, he was still under the pump. His name was being mentioned. They come out, they have a really strong performance, and Ben Rutten's the man in the game.
How good's that attitude, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I like
fantastic, because it's quite easy to slip into the I'll go away on holidays and I'll think about it next year.
And it just shows that the coach he's absolutely still got the players. If he can wind them up to that level of motivation, it's
been a good
fantastic.
success story, Jeremy Finlayson.
Yeah.
Can he play there legitimately?
I think he can. He's such a dangerous proposition. He's 197 centimetres, so he doesn't get smashed in the centre bounce ruck contest. When the ball hits the ground, though, you've got to be careful, because he was all over Sam Draper when the ball hit the ground, and he's a beautiful kick, as we know, Gaz. So that's going to be an interesting decision going forward next year.
Would he want to, if you asked him?
I think he loves playing there. I honestly do. And I think Dixon, Marshall, who's now come on to be a really good young star, and Georgiades, they probably don't need him down there as much now.
Was there a little bit of a throwback to the derby over in Western
Minus Dale Kickett.
Yeah. Minus Dale Kickett on the
visions
weekend. Is this as
Gardy
wild?
Putting a few on Pav's chin.
Is this... good evening, Pav. Is this as wild as it gets these days? Just a little wrestle and a few jumper grabs?
Yeah, well, it's a derby too. We don't want our Perth viewers.
What did I say?
Derby.
It was back of Brayshaw, wasn't it?
Well, it's Brayshaw and Gaff. There's plenty of feeling between these two playing groups.
This is as much as you can do, though. Yeah. This is the extent of it.
But it's a good flying of the flag. I like the...
it's great. It's good theatre.
West Coast haven't had much to get excited about, so it was a good day, showed a bit of passion.
Any fines?
I'm not sure.
There'll be a few fines. Yeah, dangerous game, though, for Fremantle, Gaz, because there's still a chance to make the top 4. Yeah. Dangerous game against their arch rivals, so they need to make sure they didn't have a bad one there.
They got the job done and they farewelled again one of their stars. The old fella who we spoke to a couple of weeks ago.
Dominated again, Gaz.
Keeps on getting the job. He's not going to have a reconsider, is he? He can't.
Someone else should.
More farewells than John Farnham. Who?
Other clubs.
Oh, yeah, other clubs might have a look at it.
Chase him up.
We salute him. David Mundy. What a star.